Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Phillips. I'm the head of communications with Slope Finance. The topic today we're talking about is the Solana user experience, which is extremely important to Slope Finance and where we are in the market. But if I could start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves one by one. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and what your project's doing.
Yeah, sure. I'm Edward. I do business development I'm a senior advisor for Project Serum, helping them with the business development front. Before this, I did a bit of TradFi. I was in the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing and their strategy team. For that, a bit of investment banking. So made the migration over to the blockchain and haven't looked back since.
Awesome. Tom?
Yeah, my name is Tom. Before I started on Solana, I was working with Belong Home for a few years, and primarily as a front-end dev. I do full stack for Foresight, and what we're building is we wanted to build a new type of form of governance completely, and we kind of thought a prediction market would be the best way to do it. So yeah, we're building a prediction market first, but it's really what we're really after is trying to redefine how governance works everywhere. So that's awesome.
Very good.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm the engineering lead for Drift Labs. We're building a decentralized derivatives exchange on Solana, and our goal is to basically build a centralized trading experience on-chain with all the benefits of censorship resistance, non-custodial, et cetera, et cetera.
Very, very good. Okay, so I thought we'd start with really just looking at Solana and saying, why Solana, why now? Why did you make the choice to work with Solana? Ed, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I joined the Serum project, kind of in the middle, but when Serum first started, that was kind of the beginning of this huge movement for Solana, and we needed certain primitives in the ecosystem. One of those primitives was a fully on-chain, central limit order book. This has been something that people building in Ethereum dreamed of and wanted to build, but they couldn't quite due to issues with throughput and scalability. And that kind of led to the invention of the AMM model by Vitalik in 2015. And then I think the way I kind of view the history is people have tried layer 2 solutions, or they sort of put the order book back in the shelf. But with Sam and his team from FTX and Alameda, they revisited things from first principles. They saw what Solana was doing, what Solana was capable of, and they thought, well, if we want DeFi to become huge and not just some hobby horse project, what do we need? What are some of the primitives that absolutely have to be there? And one of them would be, for the first time, this on-chain order book and matching engine architecture. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people in the Serum teams sort of saw this opportunity in Solana, and they sort of went for it, built this out, and they're building the ecosystem on top of it, a whole ecosystem that can make use of this liquidity infrastructure and matching service that Serum provides. So that's kind of the story from the Serum perspective.
And Chris?
Yeah, so we saw DeFi becoming pretty popular last year, and there was an absence of derivatives. And I think arguably up until Solana comes onto the scene, it's very hard to build derivatives on the L1 just because of the cost and the speed. As arbitragers, you're interacting on-chain constantly. And so we saw with Solana, with the speed and the cost, both for retail users, we could build a great trading experience with a GUI, as well as arbitragers actually being able to interact on-chain and do all that arbitraging that's necessary. And then by being on the L1, we can actually keep DeFi composability, which is actually breaking arguably across all these L2s and sharding. So we were just really bullish on seed time in Solana.
Awesome. And that brings you to Tom then on the UI side.
Yeah, so I think in Solana there's an opportunity to build really cool things that have never been done before. And that's kind of one thing we always strive to do at Foresight is to always build something that's great for the ecosystem, and is trying to always push the boundaries. And all of our projects reflect that. The primary reason why I got into Solana was the first hackathon. It just seemed kind of fun, and it was kind of really addicting to coding, to code in it, because there was no docs, and you would always get a dopamine spike whenever you figured something out. And I got kind of addicted to that dopamine spike. So that's life here.
And is that part of the attraction? It's
it's the constant amount of dopamine spikes.
If you want more developers, don't add docs.
I don't know about you two, but I've always found that with the steep learning, relatively, the steep learning curve of both Rust and Solana, it's led to a couple interesting consequences good results for the ecosystem and the community. I mean, first of all, you didn't have all these scammers at the beginning because they weren't able to build whatever scams they wanted to. They had so much to figure out. So the people who ended up kind of sticking with Solana are people who not only saw the benefits, but I find it's a lot of like ex-traders or ex-exchange operators or people from like these really technical backgrounds who look at Solana, they really see the whole vision and they're so committed that they don't mind, the temporary pains that come with learning something like Rust and learning how to build on Solana even before Anchor was around. So I thought that was quite interesting, but I don't know if you guys had a similar experience.
Yeah, you have to be a little more long-term oriented if you're going to build on Solana. You can't just fork a Solidity contract, deploy it, and run a yield farm.
And in terms of getting developers to come on board and use Solana, what can be done in that sense? What do you think? You're talking about dopamine spikes and the attraction and new space, but how can you encourage other people?
So I feel like there's been like quite a lot done. Like people, it's like kind of been like the sexy thing to go into. I think Anchor is doing a really good job onboarding new devs. I think it's just, in terms of getting devs on board, I think it's kind of just a matter of time and like showing people what's possible on Solana, because you can't do what we're doing on any other chain. And in terms of getting users, in general, there's a lot of work that needs to be done that I don't even think we've begun like starting. So we can talk about that too if you want.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was going to ask you in terms of the end user, because you're talking about what you're getting from it and this new space, but in terms of the end user and what they're going to get from it, can you give us some insight on that?
The end users?
Of the mobile wallets, what are they seeing in terms of being the user of Solana?
Right. So end users on the mobile platform, I found this kind of interesting because one of my favorite sort of pastimes is to force my normie friends at gunpoint to use Solana. I make sure they make a wallet. And, okay, I'm kidding, but it's interesting because you let's say you got one of your friends interested in crypto, and you give them you want them to have a Solana wallet. You want them to start playing around with these dApps and do cool things, whether it's on mobile or web. I think there's a couple of issues. First is like fiat on-ramping, because you realize, well, I have to be able to see them like SPL wrapped USDC, or have to send them SOL, or they have to KYC through another centralized exchange in order to figure that out. So there's a bit of friction there, I think. It's not something you could like easily pick up and start, using intuitive gestures and immediately doing things. So I see that kind of on the user front.
Yeah, so just to like continue, I think I don't remember the company, but I heard there's like someone who's trying to do like plot for like crypto, so you would like be able to just go on your bank on a wallet and just like say, hey, I'm attached to this bank, and just buy it immediately. And I think something like that would be super helpful. It doesn't solve like the credit card KYC, but it does solve like the bank KYC. I don't know how far along it is. I don't even remember the name, but like that kind of idea I think would really do a lot for push adoption.
Yeah, I think somehow enabling tighter integration between wallets and smart contract developers could make the experience a lot better. In the sense that, you look at traditional Web 2 companies, the designers are working with the people on the back end, and they can build this great experience. In crypto, you kind of have people write smart contracts, and you have people develop wallets, and they don't necessarily overlap. And so I think the more we can figure out like the APIs on how they can communicate. So I, as a smart contractor, can smart contractor, I'm going to just coin a phrase. If I can go and like document and like kind of guide the wallet experience and like explain what's happening and guide the user, I think it might make people more comfortable using it. Because right now you literally go on and you're signing transactions and you have no idea what's going on. And obviously like the wallet developers can't go and tightly integrate with every single protocol. And so we need to come up with a way to create more like unified experiences that you get on Web 2. And so if you're a wallet provider, I think you need to start looking at Anchor IDLs. That's my shill.
Very good. And then that leads me to the next question, which is really around blockers in your space. What do you feel could be done better? What do you feel you need, aside from these pieces, so that you can progress in your own projects?
I mean, I think the biggest blocker we like tend to run into is like weird Solana quirks. Like the compute limit would just break if you do too many things, and you'll just get like all these weird stack blowing up issues that you really have to like optimize for. And it kind of does make building the best possible UX kind of hard because you are kind of limited by Solana still. And I mean, it's fine. There's workarounds, but it still makes it more of a challenge.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I want to point out when it comes to blockers, and especially for the front end side of things. And one is like that funny issue of like you come onto a dApp, you click the menu of like what wallet you want to connect, and your wallet might not be there unless you're using something like Solid or Phantom or Sulfur, the big ones, and the smaller wallet companies or projects who are doing a great job, they might not be listed there already, and that's no fun, right? But I think this leads to a bigger, I suppose, topic of like, I think one of the differentiating factors between CeFi and DeFi is that in CeFi, everything's kind of like accessed by one point. They really have put in a lot of focus in making sure that accessibility, that user intuitiveness is there. And again, if I wanted one of my friends to go into DeFi, go into the Solana universe, I feel like I had to give them a whole tour and show them what's what and what's a scam and what's good and what's in DevNet versus mainnet. I think making that experience, I don't know what a good solution to this is, but making a better solution just for a complete newbie to come in and just be able to start on something and have a great time immediately, that could go a very long way, in my opinion.
Chris?
Yeah, I guess two things that come to mind. One, I think we need more designers in the space. We kind of always talk about the dev shortage, and more designers that can kind of talk to engineers and bring them up a level of abstraction, because we like understand how to like manage our keys, but we can't necessarily build the things that help people manage their keys. And then I think we're still missing like core infrastructure for devs on Solana to make really good retail experiences. Like indexing the history of the chain is really hard. And users are kind of used to expecting like a history of all their transactions, but as a dev, it's really hard to do that. And so I think we still are kind of missing infrastructure that'll make it easier for us to build like top-notch experiences.
Tom, do you have anything to add on that?
Sorry, I think what I said, like with the Solana being pretty, like there's just some things that are pretty difficult with Solana, and you can work through them, and there are solutions to them, but you just have to like work through them. And I think we're just a year or two away from it being very good.
Okay, and that leads me to my next question. What needs to happen in terms of wallets and where they're going so that it will help you in the future for your projects?
So for me, like the most frustrating part about wallets is you don't really know if you're going to get scammed or not, and it's like a pretty big deal. And I think that's like the first thing that every wallet should do is like take out like auto settling, and because you're taking out auto settling, it kind of ruins the experience in other ways. So until there's like a better solution for that, you're just always going to have a mediocre-ish experience until like we can figure out how to do auto settling in a secure way. Another issue is like no wallets like talk about when block hashes will expire, so you'll randomly get errors and you won't even know why. So there's a few things you can improve there, and I mean there's quite a bit.
Fair enough. Ed, do you have anything to add?
I mean those are major ones, but sort of from like the user's perspective, I think finalizing the solutions we have for bridging, especially for something like Serum, where you can have multiple Serum-based GUIs, and wherever you want to trade, maybe you also want to trade like cross-chain or whatever. And Wormhole's been doing a great job, but they're still deploying it, and I think that's like a critical next step before at least people within who are DeFi native feel more comfortable coming into Solana.
Okay. Chris, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo what I said before about figuring out ways for the wallets and the kind of protocol designers to in some way cooperate better, and for the people building the protocols to guide the wallet experience. Even error handling, like everyone has to build custom error handling. If there was a way that you could customize how the wallet displays errors in a way that like a user can understand what's going on, that would be great. Like right now, yeah, like the block hash error happens, and then like it's really hard to describe to users what to do besides like Command R and try again.
Yeah, it would be also nice if you could write descriptions for every transaction so the user knows what they're doing when they approve something too. It would be great, like if the wallet didn't disappear and was always on the screen. Like there's so many things that could be great.
It really resolve a lot of customer support issues, I think, for every protocol out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're doing a good job. It's like the first thing you get to is like, okay, let's start signing transactions with people using stuff, and now it's like, how do we just like keep cooperating better to make better user experience?
Very much so. And okay, so obviously it feels like we're at the beginning of this, right? But what needs to happen in your point of view for this mass adoption piece that they were talking about this morning, and this kind of conversion and people coming across and using Solana, or indeed even just decentralized finance or crypto asset?
Yeah, two things I kind of want to point out here. I think one is sort of a cultural one. I think Solana is an incredible community, an incredible culture, and I think what we're seeing at Breakpoint is demonstrates that. And I look forward to continued development in the ecosystem. But I think when I was talking about like the sort of difference between CeFi and DeFi versus and trying to create like one accessible point within DeFi and within Solana, that's going to require a lot of coordination between teams, and including teams who may be building the same set of services. And that's not easy, and that's not exactly, that's not an engineering problem, that's a cultural problem, that's a community problem. So I really hope that we can continue, the good vibes and the camaraderie, because I don't think we want to be looking at Solana like competition within Solana. I want it to be like, Solana, maybe those other chains, but Solana taking over the world and doing what we have to get there. And then the other thing about like how do we bring it to the world, which is basically how do we get to the next 10 million users, 100 million users, 1 billion users, and you really think about what that entails. Like, I'm not going to go to all my friends, all like. They say like 300 on Facebook is like the norm. Maybe in your lifetime you know like thousands of people. I'm not going to teach all of them like what the blockchain is and what DeFi is and what Solana really is or how it works in the background. They don't need to know how the internet works in the background either, but I know they're going to use the internet. So whatever we build, it has to be useful for them, and they have to be able to, what do you call it, like blind traffic or something? We need to get people using Solana without realizing they're using Solana or realizing DeFi. And there's a few clever ways of doing this. I've seen people do things like try and acquire pre-existing apps with like pre-existing user bases, and then sort of slipping DeFi services underneath to sort of like get that traffic or even that liquidity. But I think that's just like a pretty straightforward, like maybe naive way. And I really hope we can come together and think of other innovative ways to reach that next 100 million users.
Tom?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of niches, and every niche has like their own like problems that they need to solve. So I think like the goal is like, I think Foresight's like a really good example of something that could onboard a lot of people into Solana, because like there's no great prediction markets on Solana, and there's a huge prediction market niche. And like if you can just make a product that's like 10 to 100 times better than anything that exists in like the traditional world, I think you can do like pretty cool things and onboard maybe not just 100 million, but everyone.
Chris?
Yeah, I think maybe a good heuristic is like, can we drive the risk of people losing their funds close to zero? And I think that's like a reason a lot of people don't use crypto, is they're afraid of losing their money. And I think even there's so much benefits to it, and like people that are more technical can deal with that, but people who are less technical are very afraid to use crypto. And so the more we can take that risk of losing your funds out of participating, I think the more people will just eagerly sign up because there are all these benefits. So I think that would be like the KPI to watch, and obviously that we're like doing really bad on that KPI. So
very good. And for me, I think when I think of banking, I think of sitting down at a laptop. When I think of crypto, I have it on my mobile, right? So it is, for me, it's very much a mobile experience. And, we're hearing an awful lot of talk in terms of e-com and a movement there to bring it into that space. So I think that's super interesting in that mass adoption piece as well, right?
I mean, when you think about banking too, you also think about insurance on your own account. You don't really get that in DeFi. I know people are trying to build similar solutions, but it's just a worry among people who are not crypto native. There's like, oh, but it feels like illegal money that I'm going to lose too. So
a little bit. And then, so Solana has been criticized for not being decentralized enough. Do you have opinion on that?
Yeah, I guess I can talk about that for a bit. I think it's like how you define decentralization. And I think there's a lot of different methods. I do think that the Bitcoin model, where even if you have a really bad internet, you can still do a proof of work algorithm and sustain the network. I think that's really important. I think if major governments decided to cut the bandwidth for Solana, it'd be a pretty big problem. It would just die overnight. But it is more decentralized in other ways too, and it's quite interesting. Bitcoin is basically all co-located. Well, it was in China, but now it's in Austin, and Solana is worldwide more. So it's different, and I guess I can see arguments either way.
Ed, do you want to take a step?
I mean, Anatoly, I think, has talked about this, and you'll say it much better than I can. But I think it depends what you mean by decentralization. There's really, as Tom alluded to, there's a lot of ways to look at it. One might be, accessibility and people's ability to participate. And yeah, you have these insane, well, seemingly insane hardware requirements with Solana, but hardware will get better over time. That's part of the Solana philosophy. I think decentralization can also be looked at as a issue of resilience, and the way Ethereum might do it is only one way. But if there's another way to get to that level of resilience for the network, then I think it may be worth pursuing. At least that's how I've seen that's how I interpret the direction.
Yeah, I think decentralization is a bit of there's no pure decentralization. So even Bitcoin, which is arguably most decentralized, still has areas of centralization like mining pools, etc. And so I think sometimes we use decentralization as an argument on the internet about why one thing is better than the other, and maybe it's not. It's dumbed down a little bit for the sake of arguing. And I guess I would add to that I think underestimated about crypto is really the cryptography of things. I can use my keys to make a statement, and no one else could have said that they did that statement. And so it's really about choice in a sense of and freedom of expression. And there's never going to be perfect centralization or decentralization in the network. And so as long as we keep leaning on that cryptography and no one can forge what you're saying, I think we should play that up a bit more. So I guess I'm not directly answering your question, but I'm saying there's these other things that I wish were in the conversation more.
Okay. And when we think about the future and where this is going, do you see it more in app-based from your project perspective, or do you see it more browser-based that you're working on? Where is your focus right now? Chris, do you want to go?
Yeah. So we're looking to basically bring more traders that are kind of using centralized experiences on-chain. And that's part of the reason we picked Solana, is because we think the fees and the speed can allow for us to basically make an experience that can eventually mirror what people are already doing on FTX and Binance. And that's just not possible on other chains. And so we're trying to attract existing retail traders and arbitrageurs onto Solana. And I think if you zoom out for DeFi on Solana, there's still such little activity that really we're all in this together of bringing all the existing institutions and getting them into DeFi. And it's really zero sum in that sense. And pretty excited that we're all working together to bring all this old players on chain. So
Very cool.
Yeah, app-based stuff has a lot of advantages because you have more control over the UX, and when you do a browser thing, you need to like listen to whatever the Chrome team says, and you just don't have as much flexibility. However, it's like kind of closed source. You don't really know what's going on in an app-based, and when they push updates, you're not really sure what's happening either. So I kind of think there's like, I'm not quite sure if app-based will be the future, but like I'm pretty okay with doing it on the browser for a very long time.
Okay.
Yes, the context for Serum is unique. We try to remain neutral as a platform. Whatever you want to build on Serum, whatever you want to build on Serum, go ahead. The matching engine, the base of liquidity is all there for you. So whether you're a dApp or a browser-based app, or you're trying to build something on mobile, we invite all use cases. Whatever you think is necessary to get to that next 100 million users for DeFi, we will support it.
Awesome. So do you want to wrap up with your final comments and tell everybody how they can maybe contact you off stage and continue the conversation? Who wants to start? Ed?
Yeah, you can recognize me by the giant Serum logo on my back. Feel free, and the Serum team is, the Serum contributors are here too. You could see the giant teardrop on their back. Go up, and you could introduce yourself, say hi. You can check out projectserum.com. You can also check out portal.projectserum.com. The Serum portal is live, and we're going to be listing more and more of the Serum and Solana ecosystem there to make it, the gateway for Solana, for Solana-based apps. And you can also check out our Discord and our Telegram. Always happy to answer questions there.
Tom, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, I primarily hang out on Discord. We have like the Foresight Discord would be pretty cool, but I'm usually on the Anchor Discord. You can also find me on Twitter, and sometimes if people don't get an answer for 3 or 4 hours, I'll hop on to the Solana dev chat and like respond to them.
Very good. Chris?
Yeah, you can follow Drift at Drift Protocol on Twitter. We have a Discord, and we're currently, the app's out at drift.trade. So if you want to check it out, you can. And yeah, I'm floating around on Twitter and Discordverse, so you can also find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. So if you could give it up for Ed, Tom, and Chris, please.